Alright, what's up guys? Today I'm going to go over this Unit 4 test review. I'm going to try to go over the questions that will be most important to get success on the test that you guys will have on Wednesday. So let's look at this first question. I feel like it's a good question to kind of get our bearings as to what we're talking about. We got a quadratic function graphed and we're asked a bunch of key features. So it's pretty easy to see all these key features. We plot that top point, which is the vertex. In this case, it's a maximum. We're going to have that at x equals -2 and y equals 4. So -2, 4. Now this a value, hopefully you'll remember that we have an equation, rise over run squared. Meaning in this case, we go from the vertex. We're always going to go from the vertex. We go down 1 and 1 to the right. Meaning our rise over run squared value is -1 over 1 squared. That's going to be equal to -1. So a just equals -1. Again, these other key features are pretty easy to see. We see that we have x-intercepts at -4, 0, and 0, 0. Since we got an x-intercept at the origin, we know that it also intercepts the y-axis there. So we got y-intercept at 0, 0. Now for domain and range, it's asking for us to write it in notation, in the interval notation. Meaning for domain, we got -infinity to +infinity with 2 parentheses on the side. Now for range, it goes all the way down, which is -infinity, and then all the way up to a 4. And this time we want to write that with a bracket, because that bracket means that we're actually at that point. Okay, next thing we got is this question. This question is going to be very important. So if we look at this, it's asking us to find the equations of this graphed function in a bunch of different forms. So the best thing to do when you get a question like this is to get a lot of the key features, because the forms often require you to solve for the key features. So I see the vertex right there. It's to the left 1 and then up 8. I see we got x-intercepts at -3 and at +1. Finally, it doesn't hurt to find the y-intercept at 0, 6. Finally, we got to remember that a equation, meaning we start from the vertex, then we go to the next point there. We go down 2, then 1 to the right. So we go down 2, 1 to the right, like this. So using all this information, we could write forms A and B pretty easily, which is vertex and root / intercept form respectively. So we got y equals, we found it to be -2, then we got x minus h. In this case, h is the x value of the vertex, which is -1. So x minus h means it's x plus 1. X minus a -1 turns into x plus 1. Finally, we do plus 8 at the end. From here, we got the root intercept form, which starts out similarly. We know what a is. Then we do x plus 3, because it's a -3. And then we do x minus the +1, like that. Okay, here it's going to be important to be able to go between forms and find the same value for the standard form, the same equation. So if we get part A right here, we know that we got a -2 x plus 1 squared, which is just like x plus 1 times x plus 1. We got plus 8. You're going to get all of this, and you're going to FOIL those first terms. Those two binomials. And you got -2, got x squared plus x plus another x, and then plus 1 times 1 is 1 plus 8. Keep in mind that 2 x's turn into 2x. So I'm not going to write that there. Next, I want to distribute this -2. Going to look something like -2x squared minus 4x minus 2 plus 8 Finally, we know that this just condenses to negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6, giving us our equation. Now that's easy enough. Let's see if we could do it from root slash intercept form, which is negative 2x plus 3 x plus 1. We FOIL, we'll get something like negative 2, x times x is x squared, x times 1 is 1x, 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 3 is 3. This gives us 4 x's. If we combine the 1x with the 3x, and then distributing that negative 2, we get negative 2x squared minus 8x. And then we're supposed to get a... Oh, you know what? I messed up on the signs. I should have a negative 1 right here. A negative 1. So let me scratch a lot of this work real quick. That means we have a negative 2 x squared, and then we have a minus x plus 3x minus 3. So this combines to 2x. So when we distribute that negative 2, we get an equation of negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6 when the negative 2 multiplies with the positive or negative 3. We see that they're exactly the same. It's going to be important to be able to go between both forms. So we'll just write one of them. 2x squared minus 4x plus 6. There's our answer. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So there's going to be several questions on this. It's going to be about writing the parabola using the focus and directrix and the p that comes about it. So the best way to do this is just to understand what the p is. The p will always be the distance from the focus or from the vertex to the focus or the directrix. And we'll see what we mean once we graph this. So if we got a focus at negative 2 comma 2, means you got a point right there on the graph, negative 2 comma 2. We also have a directrix of y equals negative 4, meaning it's a horizontal line rather at that y level, negative 4. Now the thing to keep in mind is that the vertex will always be directly in between. And if you just do the eyeball test, you can see that it's right there. Or if you count the number of units in total, then you divide it by 2. But there's different ways to do it. Now once we look at something like this, we see that this is 3 units from the focus. We draw a rough sketch to understand what it's supposed to look like. Giving us a value of p equals 3. Also a vertex at, let's see, it's at negative 2, comma, negative 1. So now that we have these features, we're going to use this equation to write our new equation, or this form to write a new equation. Got 1 over 4 times p, which we know that it's 3. We got x minus negative 2, which you know it should be positive, and minus 1. Once we write this all out, we're going to get y equals 1 over 12 x plus 3 squared minus 1. Keep in mind, the p was not negative because you see how the graph opens up. You see that the focus is above the vertex, which is how it should be. Okay, so I think this is pretty simple. It's just about graphing it and seeing where the vertex should lie or the other features. Now these are also going to be important. You're going to have a lot of these on the test. So you're going to get something that looks like this, and you're going to have to complete the square. We're going to focus on question 1. So what that means is we have to algebraically manipulate it so that we can get it into a form that we can understand. So first thing starts with moving that 3 over to the other side. And that comes from this. We equal it to 0, and then we subtract 3 on both sides. from here, we want to factor that first term. So I take out a -4 out of both of them, meaning I'm left with x squared plus 2x is equal to -3. So now let's try to remember our equation. It is b is equal to 2 because it's the term that has that's next to the x. So that means our b over 2 squared is equal to 2 over 2 squared, which is equal to 2 divided by 2 is 1, 1 squared is just 1. So that means when we do this algebraic manipulation, we have to add that 1. But since we added that 1, we also have to add it to the other side, like the equivalent amount. So it's that 1, but it's inside that parentheses, which is multiplied by -4. So we got a -4 on that whole side in total. Finally, all of this is going to condense into the pattern that we're used to. It's going to be x plus 1 squared, which is equal to -7, giving us y is equal to -4, x plus 1 squared plus 7. And I understand that there might be a lot of confusion with how we went from here to all of this. But if you check your notes, if you remind yourselves how we get these patterns, it's just about writing the equation. We got x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared at the very top. All of that is equal to x plus b over 2, that whole parenthesis squared. So this is the pattern that we've been following, and you'll notice that we got it in that form right here at the bottom left. And now that we got it in that form, we can with full confidence say that it is equal to that smaller expression on the right, giving us the vertex form equation. Okay, so next one is this regression question. So this regression question, we're mostly going to focus on B and C. So what we got to do is we just got to get all this information and plot it into a list and spreadsheet. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that using TI Nspire, which I got right here. So I'm going to start from scratch. You could reference the information that you have on your paper. So I got it on my iPad also. So okay, we label our columns X and Y, then we just put in all that information in order. So 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. So pretty repetitive. And the next one's going to be 22.3, 25.5, 27.5, 29 flat. Pretty tedious, I understand, but I feel like it's pretty easy. It's just a lot of inputs, a lot of button mashing, a lot of calculator work, which tends to be easier than actual calculations. Almost done. Okay. So I could have misclicked something, and if I did, I mean, it's fine. Like, misclicks happen. But on the test, hopefully you'll be more careful with what you do. So now that you got that, make sure you're on this column next to your A and B or X and Y columns. You want to be on the C column. You want to click Menu, 4, and then 1. We're trying to find some statistical information. Since we're always talking about quadratics, we're going to do quadratic regression. We put the names of our columns, which is X and Y in this case, and we click OK. So we'll see here that we're given a bunch of information. So now that we have this information, we're going to try to put this into our questions. So we got our a, b, and c values. And let's recall that the form of the equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So as long as we have the a, b, and c values, which we absolutely do, we can just fill in the equation. So here I see that y is equal to negative 0.0081x squared, which is what I just wrote right here. If you need to round, feel free, but just use an appropriate number. Don't round inappropriately, obviously. 4746x plus 13.5. So that is my equation. Just remind yourself that the calculator gives you all the values that you put in the front. So now that you got this, you want to use that equation and plug in this x value. So this x value for question C corresponds to x equals 42. So whatever y value we get from plugging in x equals 42, that's going to be our answer. So we're going to see what we get doing that right now. I'm just going to make a new calculator app. It's going to give us, if we plug in, oh no. We plug in our equation. Then we plug in 42, 7, 4, 6 times 42, and then plus 13.5. We get an economy of 30.5, a fuel economy of 30.5. We're not giving units in this, so we can just put the value for now. So this is about as hard as the questions will get. It's just about plugging in the value that it gives you. Sometimes they could use wording such as like initial or the first value, meaning that you have to understand what it's asking. So initial might mean for like 0. The last value might be, I don't know, depending on the wording of the question. It will require some problem solving. Okay, and you're going to do the same exact process, but questions like this. You got a point, 3, 6.5, 2, 4, and then 1, 2. So there's points like this. It's just about using the same process, plugging in those 3 points. Finally, we got these 2 questions that I'm going to focus on. So you're going to have, it's important to understand the language that I use on the test. So if I say that things vertically stretch or if they shift any direction, you have to understand what exactly this means. So the first question in the top left, this just says that the A is equal to 2. Vertically stretches. This is saying that the H is equal to 1. This is equal to that the K. It is saying the K is equal to negative 7. So all that information in conjunction with the form that's given above, we could just write our whole equation. Y equals 2 x minus 1 squared minus 7. Keep in mind, it's x minus 1 because that's the form. It's x minus h. In this case, h is 1, so we just plug it in. Now, if you already did this question, no problem. But I'm going to really focus on this type of question because it was very brief. It's going to be covered on the test. So it's going to be very similar to this. So just follow with me. Imagine that we have a quadratic function and we know two pieces of information. That the vertex is at -2, -5, and then we have another point at 0, 4, just some other arbitrary point. The question is, what is our a value? So if you recall, the a value is equal to rise over run squared. Nothing too crazy about that. But if you recall from Algebra 1, it's going to look very similar to this basic equation. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In this case, it's squared. And from here, it's always good to know that our vertex is always going to be our x1 and y1 because that's where we start. Remember how I said that in the beginning? And we're going to have something like this, where the other point is x2 and y2. Using that, we're just going to plug in those values. We got 4 minus a -5 We have 0 minus a negative 2, all of that squared. That's like saying 4 plus 5, 0 plus 2, giving us 9 over 4. So it's going to be that easy to solve the answer. And again, I'm going to give you this equation, but it's important to remember, it's important to know how to do it, to remember how to do it. That's about it. I am hoping that this review will be of use to you, but if not, it's okay. I know that there's a lot of information and it could get overwhelming, but I just challenge you to just take things one step at a time. Just try to understand one problem at a time, try to go slow, and try to understand the core of this topic. And if you understand the core, then you'll be able to use that knowledge generally with the test and your future homeworks and quizzes and stuff. All right, best of luck. See you guys.